Rachel Scott. I see her there on our Zoom from. She's television
Hey.
ready. Television ready. She's ready to broadcast.
It's good to see all of you. I grew up in Los Angeles, in Diamond Bar, actually, and went to USC. So I grew up listening to all of you.
Oh my
so
gosh,
it's,
that is so
nice.
that is so cool because I feel like we're the same generation, but now I'm realizing we are not. So Rachel Scott, ABC News, went to Diamond Bar, grew up here, USC. Now are you coming to us from Washington now, or the Washington area?
Yeah, I'm Washington, D.C., in the nation's capital.
I'm just so curious. You know, I actually saw something you posted. You said on your Instagram, you said being a young Black journalist feels like whiplash. And I want to know more about what you were feeling and thinking when you posted that.
You know, especially right now, I think being a journalist is exhausting. I think being a Black journalist can be exhausting. I went from covering the campaign trail to covering a pandemic that's disproportionately affecting Black and brown people, and now covering protests. And so as journalists, right, we rattle off the stats, right? We know that Black people are 3 to 4 times more likely to know someone who has died from coronavirus. We know that it's disproportionately killing Black Americans. I've been on ride-alongs with first responders where I see those Black COVID patients gasping for air, struggling to breathe. You know, you leave and you wonder if they made it out okay, if they survived, if their families got a chance to say goodbye. And then now switching to covering protests, right, in the nation's capital, in front of a White House that's built by slaves. You're hearing chants of Black Lives Matter. You know, my grandmother marched on Washington. I grew up hearing these stories about injustice. And now I'm speaking to protesters of a new generation, and they're asking for the same thing. And so it's tough. It's really hard, and the stories resonate with you, especially as a Black American, you know. And I have experienced injustice in my life. I've experienced racism. And so when you hear their stories, these are not just protesters, they have stories. The signs are very personal. This is a personal story, and it's just much larger than just the killing of one Black man. Unfortunately, it's about the racial injustice that exists in America, and that's why these people want to change it. But it's hard, you know, as a journalist, you try and create some distance in between the stories that you're telling. You don't want to become the story, right? But you can't help but have their stories resonate with you, especially at the end of the day.
I always wondered, and I've seen your reporting, and I could never be a journalist, period, because I'm not good at that. And secondly, you know, it's hard for me not to be the story, but it's hard for me not to say sometimes what's on my mind. And I think, you know, you are reporting this story, yet I know that you feel something viscerally, I'm sure, when you're there. Can you talk about, is there anything you can say here that you can't say when you're reporting? Like, tell me what you feel.
You know, I will say, right, as being a Black American, you grow up, and my dad's actually LAPD. And so I have a tremendous respect for our law enforcement officers who are out there doing their jobs, that in many ways, especially the diverse officers, want to be the change in the system. They do, they really do. So I respect them so much. But, you know, you grow up as a Black American. My parents taught me, when you get pulled over, right, you know, tell the officer that you're reaching for your license. Let them know your movements, right? Because you just don't want to come across that you're doing anything that can raise tension. You know, in these clashes that we're seeing, right? I've been out there when the police clash with the protesters. As a journalist, you are in the middle of that action sometimes. And so I find myself reminding myself of the same things my parents told me. I'm mistaken as a protester. And so I have to slowly reach for my press ID this time.
Really?
And explain to them that I'm with ABC News and that I'm not a protester. But that mental process, right, is the same exact thing. I am very aware of the fact that I'm a woman of color. I'm very aware of the fact that I'm Black. I'm very aware of the fact that to the person or official standing in front of me, they have no idea that I'm a journalist. And so the disarming that you do as a Black American every day, I am still doing as a Black journalist covering this story.
That's amazing to think about when you are doing your job in these streets and you slowly, because of the way you were conditioned to reach for your license and registration, you slowly grab your laminate because you don't want anything to happen. I mean, that says it to me so vividly. You know, that really
does.
says it to me vividly. Well, thank you for what you're doing. We need these stories to be told. Make sure you stay safe when you're out there because, you know, there's just, there can be craziness. And we appreciate our hometown girl right here, our hometown star out of Diamond Bar High. What was you were class of 2011?
2011, yeah.
We are not
Go
the same
Brahmas.
generation. I just realized that.
No,
We're
not at all.
I was the class of 1993, so we're not the same generation. Shoot. It's nice to meet you, and we appreciate you coming on.
So great being with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Bye. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
She's the best.